Welcome back to the Am I Rich Yet podcast, a weekly podcast for millennials and Gen Zs where we help you save, spend, and grow your money smarter. Today, you're here listening to episode 16. I can't believe we filmed 16 episodes. And today, we're going to be talking about saving for your first home. My name is Georgia. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm myself a Gen Z, currently studying my MBA and navigating my personal finances.
I'm Rob, sometimes Georgia's dad. In my working career, I was a financial advisor and I'm recently retired, and I'm looking to help you with making good, smart decisions with your moolah.
Question off the bat real quick. When you're not my dad, because you said you're only sometimes my dad, what are you?
Sometimes you're a PETA, and I don't want to be your dad. I want to be anywhere else but your dad.
We just had a debacle about closing tabs on the internet, so you know how those can go. Anyways, let's kick it off with our questions to get the brain flowing. Would you like to start?
Sure. What age do you want to buy your first home?
Wow.
Wasn't in your list of top 4 goals.
So I'm 26 right now. I will be 27 when I'm back working full-time, working on my career. I would like to have it around age 35.
Okay, so you got a few years.
My question for you is, if you could go professional in any sport, what sport would it be? And why?
If I could go pro, I'd probably do hockey.
All right. Why hockey over any other sport?
I think it would be between hockey and golf, and I think golf is a grind. It's not that hockey's not a grind when you're in the pros, but you can rely on your teammates a little bit in hockey, and in golf, it's all about you. And it's a ton of pressure, and that's why you see even the best in the world fall apart. That's my take.
Okay, hockey.
But those days are long gone, and they were never really on the radar. They were at 8 years old. They certainly were at 15 years old.
Do you know what? Your Canadian patriotism is shining through right now, so that's great. Enough about hockey, and let's talk about buying a first home. We had tons of questions come in about home ownership. It is such a hot topic amongst my generation and generation above right now. If you have a home, you feel like you're ahead. If you don't, which is probably the majority of people, you feel like you're behind, and it's scary and daunting. And I think that's why there were so many questions. So kick us off. Let's get into this episode.
We're going to go back to that why question. Why do you want to own a home and when? So you need to figure that out, why you want it and when. Don't just do it because your friends are doing it. You've got to have a why and a when. If you do it because your friends are doing it, you may regret that purchase, because it will change your life. It will change your lifestyle. Big, big purchase. So that's number one. Make sure you have enough to cover more than just the basic down payment. If you're planning on having kids, you got to have a plan. We're planning on having kids in 2 years and we want to buy a house. Well, you're going to lose an income for maybe a year. And then you're going to have maybe costs for babysitting or whatever it is. Can you both go back to work? Today, most couples, both parties work. Don't just go out and buy a house. So put some planning behind it. Next up, I had, what are the best accounts to use? We've covered this in a previous podcast, but I thought let's tie it back into today with the house purchase. Number one would be the First Home Savings Account. It's relatively new. You've got to open it as soon as possible because there's no previous contribution room that you can carry forward. But between a couple, you can put $8,000 each. And remember, you're considered a couple if you've been living together for 2 years. There's lots of different couples out there and different combinations.
And age 18 is when you can start?
Age 18, $8,000 is the limit at this point. You're going to get a tax deduction. The money's going to go tax-free. And when you go to buy that first house, you can take that money out. Next up would be an RRSP. Again, you and your partner can both borrow money from the RRSP. The drawback is you have to pay it back. You don't pay tax when you take it out of the RRSP. For a home purchase, you just have to pay it back. Your miss is you're going to miss the tax-free compounding of that money when it would have been in the RRSP. But in theory, the house is compounding as well, so you're not really missing out that badly. And thirdly would be the TFSA, your tax-free savings account. So you want to try and maximize, in other words, use up the full contribution limit of all those three. And if you still have money for savings, put it into an investment account, an open account. So that would be my recommendation. Next up, develop a budget. What's it going to cost? What can you afford? Now you can go to the bank and you'll give them all the information and they can tell you roughly what you can afford. You'll qualify for a $600,000 mortgage or an $800,000 mortgage at today's rates. So that's a starting point, but also have your own ideas, your own budget. And that will help you, once you've done that, it'll help you basically figure out where you can buy and what you can buy. So it'll simplify the process. There's no point walking into a 4-bedroom house if you can't afford it. Don't waste your time. And you can really narrow down your search for a place once you've got a budget. Remember, there's going to be land transfer fees, there's going to be lawyers' fees, there's going to be moving expenses, there's going to be all kinds of stuff you don't even know about yet.
Yeah.
Okay? So factor that in. Give yourself a little bit of cushion. Time for a dad quote. You ready?
Yep.
Parental help. So here's what it says. Parents help with a ton of housing purchases today in Canada. The number is going to blow you away. It blew me away when I first saw it. The average level of help is $250,000. Now that could be $125,000 each, or it could be one parent contributing the whole $250,000. So it didn't specify, but that was the evidence that I looked at. So don't be afraid to get parental help. Sometimes it's going to come with no restrictions. Sometimes you might have to pay it back. In my case, I received $20,000 from my parents, and it came off the will at the end of the day. So when they both passed, I got $20,000 less. Now, I missed out on the compounding of money. It probably should have been $50,000, but that was the deal that my parents and I had. And they did it for one of my other sisters. I have 4 siblings.
Now, talking about parental help, it's important to note that's a huge privilege if someone is having parents or a parent or someone contribute to this down payment, home payment. But I think it's important to note that even if you're not getting parental help, you still have the opportunity to get into the market. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Sometimes you may need a cosigner. So sometimes the bank won't trust what they're seeing in front of them, and they'll say, I need some backup here. Remember, they're always about collateral. So you may need to get a parent or a friend or sibling to co-sign on the mortgage. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're good at paying off your debt, there's nothing wrong with it. Probably once the co-sign's done, they'll have no more involvement whatsoever. But you may need to do it. It's not a whole terrible thing. I'm not a big believer that you should make it too easy for your kids. But if you can help a little bit, I think it's great. Sometimes the parents buy the whole house for the kids, and I think they've just taken away one of the great things in life, which is being able to afford your own first home. They've destroyed that for that one child. That's my take, but that's my opinion.
That child will get their satisfaction in other places, which is likely the case, but you've given your opinion, so let's move on. Next thing around housing is talking about roommates.
If having roommates can get you into a place sooner, do it. Whether you have one roommate, whether you have a few roommates, whatever you need to do to make it happen, do it. Is it an inconvenience having roommates sometimes? Yeah, it is, especially if you don't know them. If they're friends, it's great, but if they're not friends, sometimes it doesn't work out. But it's better than not owning, is my take. So I would rather you get into the market with some roommates and then gradually you kick the roommates out.
And it's just this whole, it's so important to hear that and just to be reminded that it doesn't need to be perfect, your very first home. It's not going to be your forever place. It doesn't need to be everything you dream of in a house. There's going to be compromises. There has to be.
Next up, look outside the big city. Don't be afraid to make a move to the burbs. Your commute might be a little longer or something, but if that's going to allow you to get into the marketplace, do it. There's still an opportunity to move down to the big city later on. You might miss out 3-5 years or something, but if it's right, you'll get that opportunity again. I've had lots of friends that have moved back into the city because they were living in the suburbs. It did or didn't work for them, or work was always downtown. So they eventually made the move. Do whatever you can do to get into the marketplace. I think it's a good move. Next up is shop around for mortgages. Don't just trust the bank you're working with. They'll know you've just come to them and they're not going to give you a deal. I think it's worthwhile to get a mortgage broker, get someone to do the work for you. They're going to look and talk to all the different mortgage companies out there and find you the best deal that's suited for you. Getting help, there's nothing wrong with getting help. If you just walk down to your local bank branch, you're not going to get the best deal. And it's expensive to pay even 0.25% more per year on your mortgage. If you're taking out an $800,000 mortgage at an extra 0.25 point than you needed to, you're at a disadvantage.
Got it.
Let's talk about a couple of things on that mortgage. Make sure there's flexibility. Make sure you can, once a year, pay down 10 to 15% on that mortgage. I would typically go for a 25-year mortgage and then try and pay it down faster, as opposed to limiting yourself by a 15-year or 20-year mortgage, and then you got no financial flexibility. If you start with a 25-year and then start increasing those payments, typically you can increase your payment once a year by 10 to 15%, and that stays forever. The other thing you can do is you can typically double up on payments. So if you're paying $2,000 a month and you've got extra money, you can put $4,000. So there's lots of things you can do to bring that amortization down from 25 years, maybe to 21 years, or to, if you're really lucky, maybe down to 15 years. But start at 25, your payments will be less, and work your way down.
And you also said you should be paying 10 to 15% of your mortgage every year.
You always have to make your mortgage payment. So that's the minimum. You can't pay less, but you can pay more. Just make sure the mortgage you sign has the provisions to pay more. Whether it's lump sum, monthly, or double up payments are typically the three options that are available.
Awesome. We are now getting into the section of this episode where we answer questions that have directly come from our listeners. So let's kick it off with the first question, which is, what are your thoughts on buying versus renting? When is it worth it to buy versus rent?
If you do the numbers, I listened to a podcast where they do a deep dive into the numbers. And what they're saying is buying versus renting, you can match the two of them financially. The trick is, if you're renting, you have to save the difference. So if your mortgage was going to be $4,500 a month and your rent is $3,000 a month, there's an extra $1,500. That $1,500 has to go into savings, and it can't be touched until you're out of the house. Like, not out of the house, but if you're holding a house for your life, you have to save that $1,500 the entire time as well. That's the only way the two make financial sense and match each other. It's tough to keep a savings plan going that long, not touching it. You have to be really disciplined. The house is almost a great forced savings plan. You have to make those mortgage payments. You have no choice, or else you can default on the mortgage, whereas you don't absolutely have to make the savings. So I prefer the house as opposed to renting, but nothing wrong with renting for a few extra years to save for a house. So that's my take. If you came to me, Georgia, and you said, I'm just going to rent, I'm going to say, great, but we're going to set up a forced savings plan for the difference between the two.
So to sum it up, you're saying if you can afford to buy the house or buy a property, that would be a great option. And if you can only afford to rent, you should be then saving the difference.
Yep.
Because maybe this question also is getting a bit at like lifestyle factors. At the end of the day, we've talked about how all these decisions require you to define your why. Is there anything that comes to mind for you if you're, let's say, someone that travels a lot, or if you plan on moving to a different country, or any lifestyle factors like that would help to sway someone in one direction or the other if they should buy or rent?
Okay.
Is the idea you should just get in as early as you can? Once you're making enough to afford a mortgage, you should get locked in?
For sure. Let's use the example of you. You've been in Australia now a little over a year. How many times have you moved?
Okay.
I thought I'd have some fun with this.
3 times.
You've moved 3 times. So you're in your 4th place.
No, I'm in my 3rd.
But imagine if you'd gone to Australia and bought a house. You couldn't have done that. Well, you could have, but you would have far less money because every time you move, it costs you money. You have to sell, you have to move, the whole thing. So renting gives you more flexibility. So if you're really unsure of your situation, rent.
Maybe wait till then you get to a stage of life where you feel more sure about your why, or maybe you're waiting for a partner to buy.
Correct.
Or things like
Yeah.
that. All right, let's move on to the next one. Next question. How does being a homeowner impact your investment strategy?
It doesn't. You still need to save, okay? Your house is for living. It's not an investment. Everyone will say, I'm going to downsize my house in retirement. Here's how it works. You're going to move from a $1.5 million home to a $1 million home in retirement. You're going to a $1 million condo. There's $500,000. There is the commission to sell your place. There is the moving costs. There is the renovation costs of your new place. There's the 2 new cars you're going to buy for yourself and your partner. There's the money you're going to loan to your kids. And so the $500,000 disappears overnight. I have seen this literally 50 times. No one ever comes out of a house downsized with money to invest. So it's a lifestyle asset. It's not a retirement asset.
Plain and simple, maintain your investment strategy.
Absolutely.
The next question. I feel like everyone around me is either panic buying a condo or feeling like they've failed because they're still renting. Can we talk about whether owning a property really needs to be the main goal?
I think, everyone's decision is their own. It's your own life. If your job is moving you around, you're not in your forever job or even your forever industry, that's fine. You don't need to tie yourself down to a house. What happens if you're living in Pickering and suddenly you're now having to move to Mississauga? That's easier to do if you're renting. Really hard to do if you're owning a home. There's big costs involved in moving houses. So don't feel you need to keep up with the Joneses. You really don't. That's an expression, keeping up with the Joneses, but you don't really need to. That's when you're going to make mistakes. That's just my take, but I think it's good advice.
I think it's great.
It's just in your head.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. Your time will come.
It's good perspective, and it's important to remember. And I bet if you start talking about it with your immediate circle or extended community, you'll learn that really there's only a couple people out of that group that do own houses, and they're just the loudest ones sometimes.
And even little things like sometimes one of your friends is going to have a bigger house than others, but you don't know their situation. You don't know that the parents didn't help. Just stop living in the gap. Just be happy you've got a place. Or just be happy you've got a place to rent or you got enough money to rent. Don't live in the gap.
Yeah.
It's too easy to do.
Awesome. Last question here, because we've grouped a couple of questions that were asking the same thing. Home ownership. Is home ownership still a beneficial investment, or are there better avenues for capital?
Here's why it's a great investment. If you take a mortgage, it's a forced savings plan. Number 2, that money in Canada grows free of tax. You're allowed a principal residence. So that money grows free of tax. You bought it for $600,000, you sold it for $800,000, you pay no tax on that gain. So those 2 factors alone make it a great investment. And plus the pride of ownership, being able to have your own place, decorating it, entertaining friends, you name it, whether you like gardening, having a garage, whatever it is, it's your own. It's, what was the expression from a book by Mordecai Richler? The book was The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz. And I still remember the quote, "A man without land is no one." Great book. And it's all about a young guy buying his first property.
I think you made some great points there to sum it up.
What's your big takeaway?
So step 1 is to understand your why. And once you've defined your why, know what you're willing to spend or compromise on.
Yep. What are we covering?
So next episode, we are to cover all the pros and cons with investing in real estate.
Different than a home ownership. Now we're looking at direct investments into real estate. So looking forward to it. It's going to be fun, going to be entertaining, and something everyone should consider if they have the opportunity once in their life.
Thanks again for joining us on today's podcast episode, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week.